Hello, everybody, and welcome to your uh, 45th C++ Made Easy tutorial. And this tutorial, we're going to be learning about namespaces. Now, before we start off with namespaces, I'm going to do something right now, and you may have known about this, you may not have known about this, but let me create a variable, and I'm going to set this to 5. And I'm going to make another variable with the same name. I'm going to set it equal to 10. Now you're going to be saying, okay, two variables that have the same name. Why don't we run into an error, right? And we should know from the from my tutorials and stuff that this is a global variable, and since this is within main, then this is considered a local variable. So it's a global variable is seen by everywhere, so how come this is not seen as a redefinition? Well, the reason is this, and I'll show you something pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is use a unary resolution scope resolution operator, and I'm going to put variable, and I'm going to put that, and I'm going to see out again, and just a regular variable, and click endo, and just wait for this to compile. So if we notice the results, we get 5, 10. So notice that the variable we initialize here is equal to 5, and this variable is equal to 10. Now, what does this scope have to do with anything? Well, we've learned about classes and stuff already, so we know that it means it belongs to something. So when we use this scope operator, this means that we're referring to this in the global namespace, I guess we can call this. And then whenever we call this, then we're referring to the local variable. Now, what does this have to do with namespaces? A namespace is, you can kind of view a namespace like a class in that it blocks things into different sections of code, right? And namespaces aren't as widely used as in a language such as C#, but it could still have its uses, right? So uh, whenever we include iostream, you normally see using namespace std. And whenever you see a lot of people on the internet, they will say do not put using namespace std. And whenever the reason why they say don't do this is that it allows us to call functions like cout without having to put std colon colon. Well, this std colon colon allows us to specify that this cout statement is a part of the std namespace. It belongs to the std namespace. But whenever we put using namespace std, then we include it to say that it is global within our program, and therefore we don't need to include it because we're already using it, right? But it's not good to do that because, for example, say I have a namespace and I have one namespace called 1, and I have an int x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 20, and I have a namespace 2 and x equals to 20 and y equals to 10. Creative, right? Okay, so if we were to put using namespace 1 and using namespace 2, now if we were just to say cout x, what are we referring to? We will get an error because it doesn't know which x. It says it's ambiguous because it doesn't know which x we're referring to. We could either be referring to 2 or we could be referring to 1. And this is the reason why we don't like to put using namespace, because in large libraries like the standard library, they have a lot of built-in functions, and if you were to create your own function or something with the same name, or use a variable or something with the same name, then you could run into problems. So a better method to do it, instead of calling using it, we just call the name of the namespace, put 2 colons, and refer to whatever variable we're talking about. So that's why people generally say it's a bad practice to put using namespace SED. But what is the purpose of the namespace? It's basically for grouping. So normally in namespaces you'll put in classes, you'll put objects, anything to group stuff, whatever, for better organization, right? So namespaces I wouldn't say are needed, but they can help with organizing your code better. Now let me bring back these namespaces. So with namespaces, say for example that we're only going to be using namespaces within a specific area. We can call it opening and closing brace, and we can say in using namespace, whatever namespace you're using, right? And then we could make a call to see out, and it knows that we're referring to first or whatever, and we can print whatever we need there. And then must be a namespace. Oh, sorry, it should be one. Okay, and then if we're gonna use another namespace, we could say using namespace 2, and then we could do this as well. So whenever we have the opening and closing braces, that it kind of creates a region, right? A separate region than this region that we're using right here. So we can do this to separate the code into sections, and then we can put using namespace and etc etc. So without that, then we could easily do this. But the only time we would actually split up our code into sections like this is if we wanna like use certain namespaces for specific tasks. But most times you wouldn't really need to use this method. But it's kind of cool, I guess. You learn something new, right? Uh, sorry, but that's the general overview about namespaces. So I hope you learned something from it. I hope you gained something from it. If I missed something, I'll include it in the next tutorial. But I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and bye.